So I know you've been feeling kind of weird about the whole videotaping everything thing I've been doing, but I need you to see this. Okay?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm looking.
So I took the footage from last night. I plugged the camera into the FireWire drive so it could record the whole night. And I've kind of sped around and found spots where some weird stuff's been happening.
Okay.
So here, we're asleep. It's 12:30 at night, and now we'll fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
And now, right there,
No.
You start getting up. Do you remember getting out of bed?
No.
So now you're standing there, just staring at the bed. And now if I fast forward, you'll see it's been an hour and a half. Now, right here, now you turn around and you walk out of the room, and then you come back with a ham sandwich. And the only reason I know it's a ham sandwich is because we are out of ham now.
Where did I get the ham?
Well, no, I'm saying you used the last of the ham. We're out of ham now, so it must be a ham sandwich because otherwise we'd still have some ham left over. So now you eat 2 bites of it, but then you just set it on the floor. It's like, why would you do that? Like, that's how you get mice.
I mean, maybe it's stress eating in my sleep, or.
But then you'd finish it, I'd think. But that's not all. So now if we go forward a little bit more, you just kind of look at the sandwich now. I don't know. Maybe you didn't like the sandwich. I have no idea. And apparently you don't either. But then you turn around and you just start scratching your butt.
Oh.
And now, hold on.
Wait,
and then it's been an hour. And now it's been 2 hours.
Wow, I am really going at that butt crack.
I'm shocked you're not bleeding. But then it stops there, and then you just lay back down and go to sleep. I feel like I don't feel like this is paranormal, but I feel like you should probably talk to an expert of some sort.
Well, I need to talk to I might have internal parasites.
I was thinking, a doctor that handles things a little bit higher in the body, like toward the brain.
Oh.
But that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast is about why horror scares us. What deep, dark, secret, scary cinema shines a light on. The discussions are frank and involve conversations about abuse, trauma, and mental health. There are also spoilers, so keep that in mind too. Now, sharpen your machetes and straight razors, because this is Cutting Deep into Horror.
Hello, my spookies, and welcome back to Cutting Deep into Horror. I'm, of course, your host, Henrique Couto, with my co-host, Rachael Redolfi. Rachael, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. I mean, not as good as me because you didn't take a cold shower.
I'm really scared. I am very scared.
It was awesome. I got to get back into taking cold showers all the time.
I could hear you, by the way.
I couldn't imagine you wouldn't hear me because I was like screaming out in pain. Duh. It's called a cold shower, dude. But this week we're talking, we've really kind of went into a rabbit hole with found footage movies.
Yeah.
Not just because we like them, and not just because you have a lot of blind spots on some of the more classic found footage movies, but also because when I was coming up in movies, found footage was kind of a maligned subgenre.
Mm-hmm.
And now that malignedness is way less.
Yeah.
There are a lot more people who love them, prefer them, think that they're their favorite subgenre, etc., as to where that was not always the case.
Yeah.
So now very few people are like, oh, another found footage movie. Most people are just like, cool, found footage movie. So that made it more fun to kind of dive in. And there really are a lot of great found footage movies, which makes sense from the era that they were like established.
Yeah.
Of course, there'd be a lot of great ones. So we're talking about one now. If a lot of people would call fairly, I think, Blair Witch Project like the granddaddy of them all.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though in reality that's probably Cannibal Holocaust, or maybe not. We don't know. It's hard to know for sure.
Yeah.
But Blair Witch Project was definitely one of the big ones. It definitely made it mainstream entirely.
Yeah.
But the resurgence, the big surge of found footage movies started with Paranormal Activity. And I find Paranormal Activity to be somewhat polarizing with people. most people seem to like it, but then there's also the whole thing where like there were like 8 of them or 7 of them.
Yeah.
And they vary quite a bit, although I think they're all pretty funny. I even liked Ghost Dimension, which most people crapped all over. Of course, I saw it in the theater in 3D, which I think helped. Basically, whenever something paranormal happened, the 3D would happen.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It was fun. It was very fun. A 3D found footage movie, though, so that's a little interesting move. But so some people love it, some people hate it, some people get really up in arms about like the boyfriend character being kind of a jerk. Although I gotta admit, after watching it again, I feel like I don't feel nearly as negative toward him. I think he had a lot of fair points.
He did, and he has a lot of depth. I feel like they both do. But he was a very convincing, like, real life person because he wasn't just this one-dimensional bad boyfriend.
I would agree with that. So we're going to talk about Paranormal Activity, which you had never seen.
Mm-hmm.
And we may end up talking about some of the sequels because after revisiting the first one, which had been a while, I realized that and this happens sometimes with franchises that are a bit more similar in, I don't know, not in tone, but like in visuals. I had remembered some gags from the sequels and thought they were in the first one, which made me realize, oh man, Paranormal Activity 2 and 3 might actually be a lot better than I remember. Like they might be worth having their own shows. We'll see. But tonight we're talking about Paranormal Activity from 2007. I don't know, how many people would not have seen this one. It was basically everywhere. It was a huge phenomenon. I mean, it was massive. I mean, last week we talked about Cloverfield, which was, decently big, but it had a huge budget, and I think it didn't even come close to making what Paranormal Activity made at the box office.
No.
It's available to watch free with ads on Pluto TV or with your subscription to Paramount Plus. And then, of course, you can rent it on all your favorite services like Amazon Prime, Fandango at Home, et cetera, et cetera. And now I'm curious, I'm going to double check. So Cloverfield cost $30 million, made $172 million worldwide. Paranormal Activity cost, depending on who you ask, the initial budget was $15,000, but then later estimates could be as much as $450,000. That may include marketing costs, or maybe it was just post-production and reshoots. I don't know. But the box office was $194 million. So it was more than Cloverfield. And even at the highest estimate, its budget was substantially less than Cloverfield. You're that shocked? It was one of the biggest movies in the world.
No, I guess I shouldn't be that shocked because I do remember when it came out. I remember the marketing and I remember seeing
seeing the night vision shots of people like freaking out in the theater, which was a cool way to go. There was a whole era where in the 70s and 80s where movie commercials, trailers for movies were just catching people outside of a screening, like on the street, and asking them like what they thought. They did that with The Exorcist, I think.
I think I've seen, if I haven't seen videos of like actual recordings of that, I've at least seen people spoofing it. So.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, no, it was everywhere. And I mean, that's why it spawned so many sequels. It was directed by Oren Peli. I think I'm saying that right. Who at the time, I believe that was his first feature film. And he went on to be a very prolific producer, often with Blumhouse, who Blumhouse took on Paranormal Activity. Producing Paranormal Activity, then Insidious, then the Paranormal Activity sequels as a producer, then working on the Chernobyl Diaries, Lords of Salem with Rob Zombie, The Bay, which is actually a found footage movie I think we're going to end up talking about on the show because I found that one really scary. I don't know how long we're going to keep talking about found footage movies, but it may be a while. But yeah, so I mean, he worked on a ton of them. He directed the movie Area 51 from 2015, which I don't remember much about, so I'm guessing I didn't love it. But he did a lot of interesting stuff, and this was his first major film. I mean, his first film at all, and it was a just unbelievable hit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to get into with Paranormal Activity. It's a fascinating story of these, group of people getting together in California and just kind of filming stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a fascinating story.
Yeah, I'm not certain. You can probably check, but I'm not certain if it's true, but I heard that it was mostly filmed in the director's house.
I would be shocked if that wasn't the case.
Yeah, which it does totally make sense. But not only is that, a good way for them to save some money, it also just kind of like strikes home for you and I, because that's very similar. We're kind of like, oh, let's hit up our friends or something so we can go film this movie.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So we're going to jump into talking about the elements of Paranormal Activity we liked, the elements we may not have liked, and just more kind of pontification about the found footage genre and why it can work so well to scare us right after this. So Paranormal Activity did establish an entirely new deluge of found footage films that were especially in the paranormal subgenre.
Yeah.
Because Blair Witch Project was kind of in that way, but you didn't have the elements that were brought about by Paranormal Activity, which was a lot of kind of almost adjacent to the ghost hunter shows of the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the idea to me being not that the movies were inspired by ghost hunters, but that the characters that are filming themselves in these movies are inspired by ghost hunters.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of hits. Grave Encounters is one a lot of people really love as far as found footage movies go. It was crazy how many came out. I mean, The Last Exorcism came out after this. The Devil Inside came out after this. The VHS series, which is still going, came out after this. The Asylum, the company that was known for what they called mockbusters, who did Transmorphers when Transformers came out and stuff. They made...
I've got a special relationship with Asylum films.
I know you do. I mean, I do too, but it's positive. I don't think yours is not direct, but it's negative. Mine is direct and it's positive. They're nice people, but But they made a movie called Paranormal Entity right around the same time and put that out. And to be honest, Paranormal Entity, I think, is a lot scarier. If I'm like really being sincere, I think it's a lot scarier found footage movie. It's just nastier, meaner, and more aggressive in like every way.
Which is really interesting because I felt like the pacing and like the threat from the, demonic forces in Paranormal Activity, I felt like that was perfect because it just, kept encroaching and slowly escalating. So it's kind of interesting that one, goes balls to the wall.
It does. I mean, it makes sense that they would, though, because they're trying to, differentiate and they don't have a lot of marketing dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't usually go subtle when you don't have a lot of marketing dollars. Plus, from what I recall, Paranormal Activity, when it was bought, it ended up sitting on the shelf for a hot minute.
Oh, man.
So I believe, because it was officially released in 2009, almost 2 years after its first public screenings. And then it was... Paramount bought it basically. Well, DreamWorks bought it, and then Paramount. That was around the time I believe Paramount acquired DreamWorks.
Okay,
and that caused a whole thing. So it was a little bit tricky. So I remember bootleg. There were bootlegs from screenings floating around. I mean, when we watched the original endings, that's what those were from.
Okay, yeah.
From one of because those, I believe, the original ending has never been released on any disc format or anything, never as an extra, nothing.
Oh man.
So but the first time I saw Paranormal Activity was at my cousin Jeff's house, who had a bootleg. He had a lot of bootlegs back then. We were young and dumb, and broke, very, very broke. But I remembered liking it. I thought it felt, kind of like what you'd expect found footage wise, but it did have some really solid moments, some really good attention to detail. But I think that the biggest thing this movie has is not necessarily originality or a genius element, but it was the exact right movie in the exact right time.
Yeah.
Which that's good too, you know, because there are lots of really good found footage movies, but this one became ubiquitous with the whole concept of found footage. I mean, I think most people think Paranormal Activity. When I've made my first found footage movie and I was promoting it to people who are buying DVDs at fan conventions, I would literally be like, it's found footage in the style of like Paranormal Activity and the Blair Witch Project. Those were the two they would always get.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, because those are like the, Kraft and, General Motors or whatever. They're like, everybody's like, oh, I've heard that one.
Band-Aid.
Yeah,
Band-Aid and Kleenex.
Yeah. So... But I enjoyed it, but I remember then I never missed a sequel in the theater after that because they were always really fun. I like found footage movies in the theater. Some people don't. Some people find that they get like motion sick in the theater from them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I always enjoyed it. Thought it worked pretty well as a film. And I thought it was really cool to see it blow up like it did. Although it does drive me crazy when people make a movie or whatever really cheap and they're like, it's going to be the next this thing or this thing. And I'm like, cool, because one of those comes around every like 7 or 8 years. So that means that like if you miss this one, you just have to live like 400 years to statistically have a shot. But anyway, I digress on that one. But what about you? So when I put this on for you, what were you thinking? What was the experience like for you?
I mean, I obviously kind of had a general idea of what the basic plot was.
Yeah.
But yeah, what got me almost immediately was the feeling of like, oh, we're watching like a ghost hunter show. Or if not a ghost hunter show, then people who should be hosting a ghost hunter show. Because they have that kind of dichotomy of like the true believer who's like all in, and then the skeptic who's like kind of just going along with it.
Yeah.
But what as the story unfolded and as the tension continued to build, what I really loved was the kind of less is more philosophy for everything, because some of the scariest scenes in that movie, like hardly anything really happens except like maybe a noise and like some movement in the background. But it's like one of the scariest things I saw like all week. So.
I think less is more is that's a major thing. I think that and I think that with found footage movies, to me, that's when I don't love a found footage movie that's overall done really well. It's usually because they leaned into too much.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, number one, when it comes to a found footage movie, you aren't going to capture everything as it happens because it's all happening at once and you're not prepared to film it. So you should already have a sense of that kind of like, what's happening? You know, oh, this is just now happening. We weren't ready for it. That should be there anyway. So you should miss lots of stuff.
Yeah.
But also less is more because you're trying to make people feel like this could happen to them. And the big crazy moments don't happen to anybody. It's kind of the whole gag where you can watch a movie and somebody gets their head chopped off and just like applaud. But then if somebody cuts themselves shaving, you go, ah,
yeah.
You're empathetic to that pain. You're not empathetic to getting decapitated. You have no idea what it's like. Hopefully. So
yeah, if you do, I've got questions.
Yeah. But like, it's a silly comparison, but there used to be a thing they would do in pro wrestling. When they were trying to like really push realism, where they would have things they would have in pro wrestling, like you'd cut to the backstage and somebody be talking to the camera or talking to an interviewer or whatever. So they would cut to that. And then they'd have like two wrestlers like ram into him because they're both in a brawl. So it looked like it wasn't supposed to happen and it wasn't supposed to be on camera. And then the camera would suddenly like try to capture this brawl to get the audience excited and make you think you just witnessed something legitimate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what my point is about like the storytelling process with found footage is you should miss lots of stuff because you never know what's going to happen or where it's coming from. I think one of the big elements that Paranormal Activity did brilliantly was the whole locking the camera down and filming them in bed.
Yes.
I think that was relatively new, and I thought that worked really well. It added a very big differentiator, and the gag where she's like standing and staring and it's like 2 hours. That's the easiest gag to do from a technical perspective, because when you speed up footage, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, it basically looks the same when you speed it up really fast. So literally, as long as the number says it's been 2 hours, you could have sped up about a minute and a half of footage and it'll look fine.
Yeah.
You can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
You literally can't tell, especially if you're in a stationary room. I mean, if you're outdoors, it's a little easier because of cloud movement and stuff, but like it's an easy gag and it works perfectly. I mean, when she stands there staring at him and all of a sudden you see the timer speed up and you realize like, okay, it's been an hour. Oh, it's been 2 hours. That's really weird. That is super effective.
It is.
Yeah. So
it works great.
It's easy and effective. That's why, you know, I no hate to Cloverfield. I mean, we talked about it all last week, but like, that's one of the things I think it's lacking is that subtlety that is really valuable in a lot of found footage stories.
No, I absolutely agree.
So, and I think Paranormal Activity wasn't afraid to lean into that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that honestly, I think a lot of found footage movies, when they falter, it's because they're too afraid to go less is more. So they chicken out and just do a ton of stuff, and then it just takes you out of it.
Absolutely.
That's my experience anyway.
Yeah.
I've often been like, oh, I was kind of expecting this to be creepier and simpler.
Yeah.
And then here we are.
Yeah.
You know. So we're going to take a quick break, and then maybe I'll let you say something about Paranormal Activity right after this.
So I liked about the introduction for both of the characters was, very organic, worked very well, and also helped set up the whole story perfectly, because we are introduced to Katie and Micah, not Micah, Micah.
Micah, yeah.
And kind of introduced to the idea that they've been dating a while, but they probably like just recently moved in together, and now it's becoming a problem that Katie's having issues at night.
Right.
And what I liked is Micah toes this fine line between being skeptical and being dismissive. And you mentioned that he gets a lot of hate from fans, but what I saw was like he may be a little bit dismissive of like the supernatural elements, but he's not dismissive of her experiences. He's just really skeptical that it could have any kind of supernatural tie-in. It's more like he just wants to get video of what she's doing in her sleep so he can kind of put her mind at ease more than anything else. So I really like that it's not just this strict, asshole boyfriend thing.
Yeah.
And I do also like that, he really does kind of, again, being a skeptic, he kind of ties it into, I don't think that it's, ghosts or anything. It's like, well, maybe you're sleepwalking, or maybe you're experiencing like night terrors or something. He never comes out and says it, but that's kind of like the vibe that he's giving when he's explaining like, okay, I'm going to set up the camera and record us sleeping.
Well, she's not at that it's entirely ghosts either. She just doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not, a 100% believer in anything wild or different. I think the reason people think he's a jerk is because he's just kind of like on her about everything. But there's a scene in the film I pointed out and we kind of talked about when we were watching it, where he basically says like, I didn't know any of this until you moved in. And she says, oh, that's something I'm supposed to say on a first date. Like, oh, I may be being haunted since I was 8 years old. He was like, maybe on the 16th date. And I thought that was a fair, reversal from him, though, to be like, I figured eventually you'd want to say something, especially once it's like, you're going to live with me.
It could be part of the conversation of moving in together.
Well, there are also other little elements that they hint at, because if you've never seen this movie before somehow, and you don't know what it's about somehow, I mean, it's literally a couple are trying to figure out what is going on in their house and what's terrorizing her while she's sleeping. That's really it. And he's filming it because he wants to. I mean, he's filming it because he thinks it'll be interesting, and he, most importantly, has too much time on his hands because he is a day trader. And they don't lean into that a ton, but he's a day trader. And if you've never met a day trader, they fall into two categories generally. They're either hustling like crazy and just barely getting by, or they figured out their groove and they just kind of, they probably work intensely like 3 hours a day and make good money. Because there's one part where she asked like, how much was the camera? And he's like, makes some jokes. He's like, no, really, like, but how much did you buy that camera for? And he makes an offhand comment and just says, he says like, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was half what I made today.
Yeah.
And that to me suggests that he's very successful in day trading, because even at the cheapest, a camera like the one he's filming on, which I don't know which camera he was using because I never got a really good look at it. But at best, that camera would be $1,000 or $2,000. So the idea that he said about half what I made today, most people a day's wages would not be able to be thrown to buy professional or close to professional camera.
Yeah.
So clearly he's making good money. But my point is that suggests that he has too much time on his hands. He's at home all day. We never really get a hint of what she does. I don't even know. I'm pretty sure she has a job, right?
I think she has a job. Let me look, because I pulled up some synopses.
I mean, if she has a job, we never really hear about it. So,
yeah, we never really hear about it. All we know is that he's a day trader.
Wow. I love, we were joking about this before the show. I love Gemini because it's so worthless.
Oh, no.
I asked what camera was used in Paranormal Activity and said to capture the look in it, they used a Sony Handycam HDR FX1 and HDR HC3 for handheld scenes and a Sony A7S mirrorless. That didn't exist. Mirrorless cameras weren't invented on the major marketplace for like 5 more years. The A7S, that wasn't a thing yet.
Nice try, Gemini.
No, that's not trying. That's the problem. But okay, so a real source says it was the Sony HDR FX1, which I'm not very familiar with because it's a camcorder. It's a very nice one though. What was the retail price? I just want to know.
Yeah.
I'm curious now. $3,700, which would have been my guess. Would have been about that much.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, he is very successful.
It was an older camera, although back then cameras didn't go out of date so fast.
Yeah.
So it was from 2004.
Okay.
But that's not. Back then, cameras had like a shelf life of 5 or 6 years normally.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, before they would even release a new model. I mean, not even to say that, every time they release a new model, you have to upgrade. It's just they didn't even release a new model every single year for those cameras like they do now, pretty much. So, yeah, so he clearly makes good money, and they have a pretty nice house there in San Diego, which is not the cheapest place to live in the world. They have a swimming pool. They have a pretty big house. But I thought that was actually an element that's kind of underlooked about the film, is that he has a lot of free time on his hands. And I can tell you, as a person who works from home, although I don't have an immense amount of free time, it is very easy to obsess over things about the house because you're there all the time.
Yeah.
It is very easy.
Yeah.
So I feel like that plays a major role in how he acts and how he is about, figuring out her problem and their problem and stuff like that. That's just my opinion.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It really does, because then it's not just, if he worked in an office, it's like, hey, you can kind of escape the problem for 8 hours a day. But when your home is the office, there is no escape.
Yeah. I mean, that is very true. Believe me, I know. Well, we'll take a quick break and we'll get even deeper into some of this thick paranormal soup after this.
Another thing that this movie gets right, and it kind of ties into the whole Micah working from home, so there's no escape from the problems.
Yeah.
Is it really gets right how terrifying things can be in your home, but especially in your bedroom when you stop feeling safe in your sleep.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's one of you were talking about, in a movie you can see someone get shot and you don't react, but if someone cuts their finger on a paper clip or on paper, you're like, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Or the nail scene in A Quiet Place always gets me.
Oh yeah,
because you can imagine, and so that's what this movie does so well, is we have all had those feelings of laying in bed and then realizing something in the room isn't quite right, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I know you've done whole shows about sleep paralysis and stuff like that, and that's what I like about this movie is, we all have some sort of, whether it's nightmares or sleep paralysis or, someone talking in their sleep, we all have some sort of experience that we can relate to in some way that kind of makes the movie more real to us.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I think that just what scares me the most about the concept is just the idea that something, very serious and sinister could be happening in your home, and you, like, no matter what you do, you can't seem to stop it. Like, there's no, like, you're totally powerless, and it's not just like at your front door, it is in your home, in your bedroom, and I think that stuff is really unsettling.
Yeah.
Like, deeply unsettling.
Yeah. Well, because your home is supposed to be the safe, your ultimate safe space. And when stuff starts going wrong at home that you can't control, it's like you feel like you don't have any control over your life anymore.
Yeah. I mean, well, you don't at that point.
Yeah. And that's, as the movie escalates, they start to realize that they're losing control because, they start really seeing stuff happen around the house, or hearing stuff, like whether it's hearing like groaning or moaning at night, or seeing doors slam shut. And they fairly early on invite in, was he a psychiatrist or
well, he was a psychic, but he was also some kind of doctor.
And he was like, I don't think you guys are dealing with a ghost or anything. I think this is a demon. You should talk to a demonologist.
Well, and I think he said that was more because people don't get haunted by ghosts, I think is what he was getting at.
Yeah.
They get haunted by entities, like demons. They don't get haunted because ghosts haunt places. And yeah. Which I've always heard in all of these kinds of horror movies, there's always that thing where it's like, you're not dealing with a ghost, you're dealing with a demon, is like the bad news.
Yeah.
The biggest bad news you can get. Like,
well, when there's a ghost, like, you can kind of almost reason with it, but
maybe. I mean, but ghosts aren't inherently benevolent.
No, that's true.
They, like, every ghost is not bad, or wants to hurt you or whatever. I mean, they could be. I don't believe in ghosts, but I mean, based on the lore of ghosts, it's like they can vary a lot in what they're like. But demons would not. They only intend to cause harm.
Yeah. So bad news. But after discussing things with the psychic, Katie's way more perturbed, and she wants to follow his advice, but Micah's like, okay, this is getting out of. Again, he's not being dismissive of her. He's like, I still think that things are going on at night. I just don't think that contacting a demonologist is actually going to do anything. And that obviously does not please the entity that he's doesn't believe. And the psychic says, like, don't interact with it, and Micah keeps interacting with it by trying to film it, which antagonizes it. And that's around the first time we see that Katie standing over Micah in her sleep gag.
Yeah.
And it did kind of remind me, because you've sleep talked before, and it reminded me of that. But it's the kind of thing where, like, again, it sleep is a point when you're so vulnerable that when someone starts acting weird in and around sleep, it just is super unsettling, because, everyone around them is vulnerable. And when they start acting off, it's like, okay, that's not a good thing.
Well, I think that interpersonal relationships tend to hit a lot of friction when sleep is damaged.
Mm-hmm.
When there's poor sleep, people they don't act their best.
Yeah.
They don't handle situations very well. Nobody's happy to lose sleep.
No. I mean, I'm not.
I'm not a fan myself.
No. But and there's been countless studies about, like, losing sleep and how damaging it can be for you. And that the movie definitely plays on, as things escalate at night, they're both not only getting more freaked out by what's going on, but they're also getting more and more exhausted and more like almost fed up with each other because they're just so run thin by not getting enough sleep and then being terrorized by everything all the time.
Which was taken to an even bigger extent in Blair Witch Project. I mean, they're tired, they're cold, they're hungry, and all of that is why the Blair Witch Project has such an immense amount of lore building and questions unanswered that people want to know, is there really a Blair Witch or was it just them going crazy and stuff, is because they had so many external factors happening. And I think with Micah's character, he did want to prove that nothing was going on, but I don't think that was with ill intent. I think he wanted to be able to show her so that she could hopefully gain solace.
Exactly.
He wanted to be able to go, look, nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then she could go, oh, and they'd be like, it's going to be okay. But also I think that, when it's like she keeps messing up his sleep every night, I mean, from his perspective, she's messing up his sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if she's freaking out and stuff, and from his perspective, she's the only person there. So she's wrecking his sleep every night. So I can't blame him for getting a little snippy, when he's like, look, if there's just nothing there.
Yeah.
It's like, there'd be some frustration going on. But I mean, nobody's acting, their best when they're dealing with activity of the paranormal persuasion.
Almost like it's in the title.
I'd have to check. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be talking even more about this activity of the paranormal type. Yeah.
You had mentioned when we were watching Cloverfield.
Yeah.
That you really noticed going back over it with fresh eyes that one of the things that you felt that worked against it was how glossy it was.
Yeah, and not necessarily just from a picture quality or sound quality standpoint, although there is that too, but because it had all these like very they were all actors, like very, like if they weren't well known, they became well known almost immediately. They were all very, for lack of a better term, very actory type actors. They looked like actors. It looked like you turned on a TV show.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing, as much as I don't, I sometimes can be a bit harsh about why you pick a main character. The lead actress in Paranormal Activity does look like a pretty average person.
She does.
I don't mean that as a dig. She doesn't look unattractive or slovenly, but she just looks like a person you could meet.
Yeah. I feel like if she was a teller at the bank, I would not be caught off guard.
I would be, because I saw Paranormal Activity, but otherwise I get you. Otherwise. I'd be like, holy crap. And then I'd be like, yeah, showbiz sucks, huh? At least this gets you dental, right? But no, that's all is like, that's the other thing is like, yeah, they're believable looking people. I mean, Blair Witch Project, they were believable looking people.
Yeah.
So that's another element of the glossiness. And Paranormal Activity, like they even had that, which I honestly is almost like cringy to me. They have that whole scene where he's like putting the wireless microphone on her. And I was like, I mean, at least they're trying, because that's something that's really important to me with found footage movies, is you have to have it be believable.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening.
Yes.
So making it believable that we can hear her talking so clearly and stuff. I get that, especially with the technology of that time period, because now you could just use the on-camera microphone and augment it with, algorithms and AI to make it sound better. But back then, if you wanted to really hear somebody from the other side of the room and know they'd be intelligible, you had to put a wireless microphone on them 100%. There was no other option at all.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the glossiness I think does take me out of it. I like when I can't, the least amount I can figure out holes in the logic of the filming, the better.
Yes.
Like I want it to be as believable as possible that, this was just somebody with a camera or whatever. And, having him be a very successful day trader was a really smart way to excuse why they were filming on a relatively expensive camera. Although an older camera, I mean, they could have filmed on a nicer one.
Oh, yeah.
But they didn't have the money.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual money for the production. So, but I do like that. I think that, feeds into like, guys and their toys. So, but yeah, it is like, Cloverfield has just a ton of, like, that movie's so glossy that there is a part when they show I think the first time you kind of get an inkling of the monster off in the distance, they grain up the footage a bunch and you actually notice how grainy the footage is because the movie's just not that grainy in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and Paranormal Activity, I mean, the other thing they did that they kind of established this as a new trope was using the night vision.
Mm-hmm.
Which got way more intense after that from lots of different movies. But, and that stuff became, super tropey from there. And night vision and stuff looks wrong. It's bad.
Yeah.
As far as like image integrity.
Yeah.
And that's what makes people like it. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a gloss difference. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, not only because like you made that comment last week, so I was kind of keeping it in mind as we were watching Paranormal Activity. And
because women never forget like when you say something that ticks them off.
We're like elephants. But I kept it in mind. And so one thing that I was noticing was like the lighting was often very imperfect, but that made it believable. It made it feel like a guy who's not into film.
Yeah. He's at best a early hobbyist.
Yeah, he's just doing the best with what he's got. I love that. And another thing that I really liked is I love the expanse. I love the urban chaos of Cloverfield.
Sure.
But Paranormal Activity is so claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And I feel like that also comes down to it's not so glossy. It's not so refined. It's just like being imprisoned in your own home. And all you have is this little camera.
No, I would agree.
To document it. So
one thing I think that Paranormal Activity really did well to kind of reinvent the wheel is before Paranormal Activity, I always felt like if you wanted to tell a really scary found footage story, you pretty much needed to be almost all in one night, where everything happens all at once and it's just a deluge. Now, Blair Witch Project takes place over a couple of days instead, maybe a week almost, but it's a week lost in the woods. I feel like that's different than like being at home for a week. But when I saw Paranormal Activity, especially after I watched it a few more times, it takes place over like a month or so.
Yeah.
And that actually works really well because it leaves you to fill in the blanks of how things were going for all that time that we weren't seeing things filmed. Because while there may not have been much ghost activity during that period that we were away, they had, dozens of meals together where who knows what they talked about or how well they're getting along, who knows how they're sleeping on the nights nothing happens because
you're waiting for something to happen.
Yeah. It's still, you're having sleep anxiety about it. So I think that actually, I found that made it work. It made it feel more like the fuse was very, very slowly burning.
Yes.
And that's something I've always thought that it did really well because Cloverfield did a great job of being all in once, in one night. A really good job of that because that immediacy really helps push the adrenaline.
Yes.
But with this film, it's like it pushed the dread. And I think that works really well for it because, the most important thing in a found footage movie is how it ends. Because why is the footage found?
Yeah.
That is super important. And almost always, although there are exceptions, it's not good that the footage is found. It wasn't found because somebody forgot it at a rest area. It's found because everybody's dead or missing or a mixture. So, but that alone gives you a sense of dread from the very beginning. When you put on a found footage movie and see somebody setting up the camera going, "Hey, I'm Paul, been hearing some weird stuff, and I'm in college, so I needed to make a video essay anyway. Like, I've always known this. Whatever. You're like, Paul's going to die horribly. Like, you already know.
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
I just wonder how and when.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Like, you know,
I know the destination.
Yes.
I want to experience the journey.
Or maybe I don't.
No.
I'm afraid of it, but that's why I'm here. I'm watching it because it's scary. So that's an element that I think they do very, very well is kind of keeping that dread going. I mean, and like the Blair Witch Project, I mean, literally the marketing was like, they all disappear. Their footage is found years later.
Yeah.
They even say it. So you don't even have to assume it. They're telling you like they disappear and then we find their footage. So you're really full of dread all through Blair Witch Project. But we'll take a quick break and I'll postulate more fascinating insights into the found footage genre right after this.
So you've got a lot of experience. Well, maybe not a ton, but you've got more experience than the average person writing and directing found footage movies.
I would call it a lot than the average person. I think I have more experience than the average filmmaker with making found footage movies. Cause I mean, I've done four features and then the TV series,
a whole
which
TV
I directed
series.
two episodes of and produced the whole shebang. So I have a lot of experience with found footage movies.
So between Cloverfield and Paranormal Activity, which one do you think has the stronger script?
See, that's a loaded question, which are the best questions to ask when you're on, a show.
Exactly.
But that's a loaded question because there are two schools of thought. Which is the better script or which is the better found footage movie?
Okay.
Because they're not the same thing. They're not always mutually exclusive. The better script, scripts, the goal of a script is, people would say, I think some people would argue, well, the goal of a script is to make a good movie. That is not really the case. A script is its own art form.
Yeah.
And turning a script into a film is its own art form. That's why they're different jobs. That's why there's a different word. It's not just writer and that's who made the whole movie. It's writer and then there's a director and a producer and that's a skill set. So, and the script always changes a lot.
Oh yeah.
To become a movie, but that doesn't mean that I mean, it's very common and people will sometimes get crummy about it and I understand why, but they'll be mad because they bought my script and said it was like the best script they ever read and then they changed everything when they made the movie. And it's like, well, sometimes that can be because they're over controlling and they just want to like make it their own and da. And sometimes it's because it just doesn't translate. It's solid on the page and on the screen, it just doesn't make sense. Or it's same thing with adapting a book to a movie.
Yeah.
It's like, there's lots of elements in movies that don't really work or elements in books that don't really work in movies.
Yeah.
Tons of elements, including insanely expansive storytelling, turning a 350 page book into a 90-minute movie is freaking brutal.
You've got to cut out
stuff in that book. Yeah. So from a traditional screenwriting standpoint, I mean, you want to have a beginning and a middle and an end. You want to have a main character that goes through a journey where there's changes. I mean, like there are a lot of elements that are traditionally what you want from a screenplay to keep it engaging and to optimize storytelling for that format.
Yeah.
So with that, it probably would be Cloverfield because I'd almost guarantee Cloverfield had a more traditional screenplay from the start.
Yeah.
Because it even as a found footage movie, it comes off more as a traditional movie. It has a very clear beginning, middle, and end. It has a very clear kind of attitude about who are the main characters. Although, it's a thriller movie. It's a horror movie. So like it has people dying and you don't expect it. It has unexpected twists and turns, which is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But with Paranormal Activity, it's much more loose. It's much more kind of what is happening is happening. I mean, it does have decent pacing. And supposedly one of the first things Jason Blum did when he bought on as a producer on the film, because he came on after the movie was done.
Okay.
I mean, Oren Peli didn't have any connections in show business. In fact, Jason Blum bought in when he was still at Miramax before he had fully founded Blumhouse.
Wow.
So when he came on, one of the first things he did was he helped Oren re-edit the whole film because Oren shot it, directed it, edited it, wrote it. He did it all, He helped him re-edit it to try and make it a stronger film, and then he got it into Sundance. That was like his big contribution initially.
Okay, wow.
So I think that the movie definitely has better pacing than it probably did when it started out, which is a thing. I mean, it happens all the time. So I don't know. I mean, like, I think that, definitely Paranormal Activity is the better found footage movie. I think it's the scarier movie. But from a storytelling standpoint, it is very sparse in many ways. I mean, it has a lot of good subtlety in it, but I think a lot of that comes from the actors' improvisation, which is good, and I think is better for the type of, the subgenre to have actors. I mean, they did the thing you do when you're doing really intensely improvised work, which is the characters are named after the actors.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just a very easy trick to kind of keep things, feeling realistic. So, but what do you think?
Well, I agree with you and disagree with you in ways.
How dare you?
Which is, of course, a cardinal sin.
Yes.
But no, I agree with you in that if you were to sit me down with the script of Cloverfield and the script of Paranormal Activity, Paranormal Activity is going to be really sparse.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot of it just going on in the background, and it's like even like the scene where they set out like the flour or baby powder or whatever, and then there's just like those inexplicable footprints.
Yeah.
That's not going to be very impressive as a script, as a screenplay. But that being said, the execution is perfect because, like, the pacing, like you said, the pacing is great. Every scene feeds into the next and informs the rest of the movie. It establishes the rules very, very quickly.
Yeah.
The characters are very, very well developed. So I think that's kind of like the difference is, like, even if the script itself would be very sparse, I feel like the execution was so perfectly done. That's why it's the better found footage movie. Because I think ultimately, if you were to take both of these movies and refilm them as just being straight up, horror, one would be, obviously the paranormal horror, the other one would be like sci-fi horror. I feel like as movies, Cloverfield would still be rather impactful, but I feel that Paranormal Activity would lose a lot in translation if you were to make it a more straight, regular horror movie.
I would agree with that for sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
That's kind of my thought. And that also makes me think, because I don't have as much experience with you as you, but when we filmed our show or our episode for Found Footage, the series, I really realized how much of found footage is improvisation.
Yeah.
And
it's everything.
Yeah, that's something that you really, as an audience member, you don't often think of. But yeah, a lot of it is just like playing make-believe as the actors and being like, okay, this is what's happening. Now go.
It's technically, the technical term is retroscripting.
Retroscripting.
It's when you have an outline that is planned out and situations to improvise which are planned out, but there's no actual script.
Yeah. Okay.
A easy way is to say we're improvising the movie, but in reality, there's a outline that you're scripting it as you go, though.
Yeah.
You're just, but the bullet points are there, which is a lot easier to work in than literally making it up as you go. So, but we're going to take a quick break, and then I guess we'll keep talking.
I guess
that's what you do.
So before we came back on, we were discussing that there was a bit of a found footage boom, kind of like between Blair Witch Project up until Paranormal Activity, there was quite a lot going on. Well, not quite a lot, but
I'm not familiar. No, there were very few found footage movies until Paranormal Activity. You just said between Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity.
Sorry, I got myself confused because we were talking about the timeline before.
You meant post Paranormal Activity. Okay, yeah. When we were off break, we were talking about it, and I was like, I don't think. Yeah, you literally said that too.
Got myself confused again.
Well, I mean, if only the fact that there are 6 more entries into the Paranormal Activity franchise. I'm serious.
Yeah.
One almost every year. Paranormal Activity 2 came out in 2010, 3 2021 or 2011, 4 2012, 5 in 14, part 6 in 15, and then Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. I don't know if I saw that one. I think that one was during COVID-ish times. I think that might have went straight to Paramount Plus.
Ooh.
I can't remember if I watched that one. And but I just found out that they announced Ian Toisson is doing Paranormal Activity 8, which is coming out next year.
Ooh.
Ian Toisson, I think that's how you say it, or Toisson. He's Canadian, so I assume that's a French name. That's the guy who wrote and directed The Undertone, which I thought was a phenomenal horror movie that came out this year in theaters. So that's really exciting. I hope he does great with it. The Undertone was not a found footage movie, but it had elements of being kind of found footage. But I mean, so that alone, it spawned all those movies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you had mentioned in the last episode, like Rec.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned
which was a Spanish movie.
Yeah,
Spanish movie series.
And you mentioned like Diary of the Dead.
Yeah.
But
which was George A. Romero's official Night of the Living Dead sequel that was found footage and had a lot of problems. I do enjoy it, but it really suffered from the why is this being filmed? How did you get this footage? Why is it edited like this? That kind of thing.
Yeah. But how much do you think that was because of the technology that was becoming available? Because like you even looked up like what camera they, used in Paranormal Activity, and like, camcorders were becoming more, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, people were getting camcorders, but now you're getting, better technology. You're getting more accessible and cheaper camcorders.
Well, it was at the same time that filmmaking was becoming democratized, which is things were cheaper so that you could, basically, there were filmmakers in the earliest days of film that said that filmmaking would not truly be an art medium until it was as affordable as a pen and paper. And that's, we're not quite there, but at the same time we are, because like everybody has a phone and a phone is now a camera. So it's almost cheaper in some ways, except because it's a prerequisite to have a phone. But I think that one of the big, because not all of the found footage boom movies were literally inspired by Paranormal Activity. Some of them just simply became successful because Paranormal Activity was so successful. Rec is actually a really good example because it came out in 2007.
Oh, okay.
And it was a huge hit. It did a lot. It did a lot of money in Spain and the rest of the world. So, that came earlier. But of course, huge hit when you're a small foreign movie is not, $200 million, but it's still a lot of money. So the big reason that found footage movies took off was, it was affordable to create. Oren Peli had said that the idea of not needing a crew made the production simpler and cheaper immensely.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it comes down to, is money first and then storytelling is second. It's a different type of storytelling that you can, if you lean into it. That's always been my methodology with making any kind of movie, is if you can make the movie, the story you're telling make sense with what you have to tell it, then you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you only have $80, then it should probably take place in like 2 rooms of a house that you already have access to. Well, then what's the best story you could tell that is limited like that?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, because you said that, I will mention that I think the biggest negative elements in Paranormal Activity is the fact that it comes off a little over edited. It has a lot of fades, especially in the early parts. It has a lot of like little fade transitions and stuff that I don't like. They take me out of it. And I do think that it was a misstep using such an expensive camera. I really do. I think that they were afraid that if they had used a really cheap Handycam, that it wouldn't have been able to get out there. I think that's why they did it.
I can see that.
Because there are a lot of found footage movies that use like the most expensive camera they can get, and I think it always looks lame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. So when I was saying the Asylum's knockoff Paranormal Entity was scarier, they definitely shot that with like an off-the-shelf Sony Handycam. Like shamelessly. They just did. I'm sure they probably, I would guarantee they had professional sound, because you can say a lot of things about the Asylum, but they were always pro. I mean, they made movies that passed quality control and got released all over the world. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
But they definitely shot that on like a Handycam. And I think it, for me, Paranormal Activity would be even scarier if it had been shot on like the cheapest camera you could get at Best Buy in 2007.
No, I do have to agree.
But it was still one of the biggest successes ever. So what do I know? But I think even, honestly, I think even the sequels, they all look cheaper camera-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, not just the ones that take place in the past, because there's one that's in the 80s or 90s that I really like. But I do, that's my biggest negative is I like found footage movies the most when there is zero editing suggested. And it's the idea that you're watching straight raw footage. So all the cuts are because somebody stopped recording and all the starts are because somebody started recording. That doesn't mean that that's always the way you can go. And sometimes it's almost impossible to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my favorite found footage movies, the whole argument is like, we compiled this to make it clear, what happened. I mean, I think I put that in Amityville No Escape. One of my favorite found footage movies I've done. I put in there that like it would have been put together to contextualize the events for legal purposes or something.
Yeah.
Or no, I think that was Devil's Trail was the one that I said that. But yeah, so I mean, the audience is going to know the movie's assembled, but I try to hide that as much as possible. But Paranormal Activity coming along so early, I think that's one of the reasons they can get away with that, because the rules, air quotes, hadn't really been established. Like what people are hoping for, what they're expecting from found footage movies was pretty minimal.
Yeah.
It was basically just like Blair Witch Project. And there were other found footage movies before Paranormal Activity for sure, but there was a boom after that. I mean, the fact that you could say, hey, we made like one of the scariest movies you've ever seen and it made $200 million and, we didn't even really know how to make a movie. We just did it this style. That's addictive.
Yeah.
I mean, but what do you think? I mean, I'm guessing you probably think similarly, because I don't know what other reason there could be, honestly.
Well, I absolutely agree. I think that, on both counts, I feel that giving Paranormal Activity a little more character on screen with a cheaper camera would have been a good move. I can understand why they didn't.
Yeah, sure.
But I anytime there is on screen a reason for the film to be low fidelity, it just adds character to me. And I feel like it makes it sells the found footage trope a little bit more. And I also agree, like obviously the cameras being way more accessible and way cheaper, and the democratization of film played into that hugely. But I also think that obviously the internet had a lot to do with it, because YouTube had been around long enough that it was kind of established that you can find really interesting or scary videos just out there that people have uploaded. And we discussed it a little bit last week, but like post 9/11, there's a lot less trust in the establishment in news. There's a lot more us getting our news from each other, just like by spreading viral videos. So I feel like that culture also kind of was the perfect breeding ground to create this artistic medium of found footage the way that we know it today.
Well, and I also, there's no way I could get into it. I mean, it would take forever, and I would need to do a lot of extra research. But in Japan, they did an insane amount with found footage as well, very early on.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's an incredible amount of strange and fascinating found footage Japanese movies, even from the 90s, some of them.
Ooh, okay.
So, they ran with it as well. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about whatever we're going to talk about right after this.
So we already discussed a little bit the less is more philosophy in horror, but especially with found footage. But toward the climax of the film is when they really start utilizing that to the fullest. Because I'd already discussed the footstep sequence when they lay out the baby powder. But that's also when Katie starts standing over Micah even more, and she is just standing there for hours on end. And of course, the end of the movie, the final scene is her standing there for hours, and then going downstairs and all that unfolding. But as I was watching it, and as we were discussing this whole philosophy, it got me to thinking about why it's so scary to get so little information in a film. Why the less is more philosophy is so effective. And the movie is so strong because it forces you as the viewer to be hyper vigilant, because there's so little going on at any one moment. You're fixated on the background, and you're really trying to hear every little detail. And so it's almost like you scare yourself before the movie has a chance to.
Yeah.
And so you prime yourself, and you become complicit in scaring yourself. And are there any other films that you can think of that really did that well for you?
Oh God, yeah. No, one of the most polarizing films of the last 20 or 30 or maybe even 40 years, which is Skinamarink.
You've mentioned Skinamarink to me before.
Skinamarink is legitimately the most polarizing film I can think of in the horror genre. People either think it is literally so boring it's insulting, not just bad, but that it's insulting, that it's so meaningless, or they think it's really friggin' scary. I am in the friggin' scary camp. I think that it is a very fascinating movie to watch. Very little happens, but the atmosphere is so thick. I mean, you couldn't cut it with a knife unless the knife was damn sharp. It's really, the atmosphere is insanely thick. I found the movie to be almost subconsciously affecting. And I'm not saying that that's the filmmakers are so genius they knew what they were doing exactly, but that movie reminds me of being a child and sneaking around my house at night when everybody's asleep because I'm just a little friggin' goblin. And that movie, because so little happens, you are constantly, your eyes are searching the screen because things do happen. Well, some people claim literally nothing happens, but it's because they're mad. But and if you don't like it, that's fine. But when I sat down and watched it, I remember I was watching it with my buddy Dave, and we were kind of on the fence about whether we cared or not, because we missed it in the theater, so I had to rent it at home. But then about 10 minutes in, something about it just got us. It just pulled us in. Cause I remember at one point we both put our phones away entirely because we were oh man, we got to pay attention if we want to get this. We got to really pay attention. And it almost puts you in a fugue state in some ways, because you're staring at the screen and it's super grainy. It's not found footage. I mean, it's a narrative feature, but it's super grainy because everything is so low light. And I swear, and I may just be insane, but I swear the texture of the grain on the screen almost starts writhing because you stare at it for so long. I don't know if it was just my eyes or if that was actually on purpose. Ooh. But it started to feel like the screen was almost breathing, it was just all moving because you're staring at these grain patterns, which is what happens when video boosts brightness. You're just staring at these brains moving and moving and moving, and they kind of move the same way over and over again when nothing's really happening on screen. And I found myself staring at them to the point where they felt like they were starting to look like other things to me. It was like hypnotic is the word. And I found the movie really unsettling and creepy. I've watched it twice, and both times I loved it. But I know people who, I mean, they think it is literally like it was an insult to say like, hey, watch this, it's scary. And then it's just a living room. That's one of the memes, was just people saying like Skinamarink fans in a theater, and then it just shows a shot of an empty living room and then all cheering like crazy. So, but I thought it was really sincerely scary. It's one I've been meaning to show you for a couple of years. It's weird and it's off-putting, and you have to be 100% in to get anything from it. You really do. And I loved that because I had to focus on it so intently to get something from it. And then I got so much from it. A lot of people did not, but I did. So no, I think that's like the best example of there's so little there, but what you get does really mess with you. I mean, things do happen. The space you're in that movie changes and shifts, and you really have to pay attention to notice when it happens. Because if you miss something, which you will, if you miss something, then all of a sudden it feels like everything's changing all at once. But then when you watch it a second time, you're like, oh, it's been happening this whole time.
Oh,
so I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, that sounds really creepy. Okay, we're going to have to watch that.
Yeah, Skinamarink is a good one. That's one I've been debating doing on the show, but I was like, I don't know if I want to avoid the haters or I want to dab on the haters. But for me, that's like 100% a great example of less is more, a phenomenal example. And maybe I'm crazy and it really is stupid and pointless, but I still got entertained. So I won, like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But do you have a film that you feel is like the most less is more kind of personified? Like it does the best job of or benefits the most from less is more?
Mine is now going to be a cop-out because I was just going to say Digging Up the Marrow because there's so many instances. Like, you and I both had very similar experiences watching that movie because you told me how scary it was. So I went and watched it on my own one time. And, about halfway through the movie, I had to like turn it off and take a minute, like turn on the lights.
It was after the first jump scare.
Yeah.
Because it lands so hard and you're really not ready. And I don't know how you're not ready. It feels, when I remember it, I'm like, it seems so obvious that was coming, but it really hit hard.
Yeah.
That's a really solid one.
That's a good one.
But that movie, I love Digging Up the Barrel. I would do that on the show. But we
will soon.
But it has a lot. It has celebrities.
It
has major special effects, although they did a good job of doing a bad job with the special effects.
Yeah, which so much so that they even joke about it.
Yeah, they say like, you should have lit it better, which is hilarious because like the first thing you should do in a found footage thing is like do a bad job. And then Kane Hodder, who famous for playing Jason, makes fun. He's like, oh, so this is found footage? Which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. But that's why I said it's totally a cop-out because it is such a more is more kind of movie.
In some ways, but then the scares are absolutely less is less in every way, or less is more in every way.
Yeah.
But we'll take a quick break and pick each other's brains even more vigorously and violently right after this. So we've dug around and we've rooted around in this whole realm of found footage horror. And that's why I'm enjoying that we keep diving into more and more found footage movies, because there's so much to talk about. Like, I feel like we're never really running out of things to talk about in the genre as well as the movies themselves.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, the biggest element of this movie that is everything to it. And that is the ending.
It is.
The last 5-10 minutes. Because when you watch those commercials and those trailers where they show the people freaking out, they're all reacting to the ending. Because there aren't a lot of big scares in Paranormal Activity, and that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Although I can't wait to show you Paranormal Entity, because it has a couple of big scares that, like, I remember the first time I was watching it, there was one scare where I went, nope. Like, it really hit me hard. So anyway, so let's talk about the ending. All this paranormal stuff is escalating. At one point, they call the psychic back in, and he walks in and immediately goes, whoa, 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 I should not be in here. And that was a great one, too, because the last time I'd watched the movie, I got the sense he was afraid for his own safety. But this time around, I was like, no, he's afraid for their safety.
Yeah, he's kind of like, you shouldn't have brought me here.
Yeah,
it's mad.
I'm agitating it, so I'm going to leave.
It's like, I will call you when I'm in the driveway so I can give you further instructions.
Yeah. So I thought that all was really cool. And there was the epic scene with the Ouija board catching on fire, but then having no scorch marks later and stuff. There were a lot of cool little
they
things.
Find
the photograph.
Micah finds the burned up photograph of her up in the attic, and it was supposed to be burned in a fire from when she was like 13.
And that's the big thing they keep pushing, is this idea that there was a fire when she was younger, and that's kind of where this all started. Yeah. But obviously, and rightfully so, it's not fully explained, because that would negate the point of it being a found footage movie, which is that not everything gets explained. And that is the problem I have with later sequels, is they sometimes try to make it make too much sense.
Okay, yeah.
But I do appreciate the creativity.
Yeah.
Because they're not unrelated movies. They end up being related. All of them do eventually.
Okay, yeah.
So now we're in the point now where, I mean, we've seen the talcum powder footprints, and we've seen the scared psychic, and we've seen all of this stuff. Their relationship is frayed as hell, but they're really trying to stick it out together. There are a couple of really sweet scenes where, like, they're getting back into bed, and, she cuddles up with him, because it's clear she doesn't hate him. She's just scared as shit.
Yeah.
And he's scared too. But then we get to kind of the notorious thing, the last night.
Yeah. Well, so Micah had initially been suggesting, like, let's get out of here. Let's go to a hotel.
Yeah.
And Katie was about it at first, and then as things progress and things start happening, she's like, no, actually, I don't think there is any escape. We should just stay here.
Yeah, and they had been saying that if they left, it would probably just make it angrier.
Yeah. So they try to go to bed and, set up the camera just like normal, and as has been getting more and more frequent around midnight, Katie gets up out of bed and stands there menacingly for hours and hours and hours. And then around like 3 a.m., she goes downstairs, and the footage goes back to normal, and she starts screaming bloody murder.
Well, she leaves the room.
Yeah, because she goes downstairs. You can't see her anymore.
Yeah. So we're hearing her from the outside. Yeah.
So Micah wakes up, bolts up out of bed, runs downstairs, and then we hear him screaming, and we hear like a scuffle. We hear, some kind of altercation, and then it goes silent. And then we hear thud, 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 and it gets louder, and it's footsteps coming up the stairs, and then the footsteps stop, and then Micah's body just gets hurled across the room, crashes
straight
in front of straight to the cameras, crashes in front of the camera. Katie thuds up the stairs and into frame, and her shirt is just covered in blood.
Right.
Walks up to Micah's body, leans down, and like
it looks like she's sniffing
she's
it.
Sniffing it or
agree.
something, like
that.
And then looks at the camera and grins all demonically.
And they kind of CG her face to make it like creepier, which is a little cheesy, but I'm okay with it.
It's a good touch. Yeah. It's a touch,
And then
And then she just goes at the camera.
Kills the camera. Yep. And then then I believe we get informed that she was never found.
Yeah, she was never found.
And she's still missing.
Yeah.
And I don't hate that ending. I think it works pretty well. I know that Steven Spielberg was one of the people who kind of pushed for that ending, a little bit more of a crowd pleasing ending. The alternate ending that people that they also did, not including the original ending, was the one where it's all that same stuff, except she slits her throat.
Yeah.
At the end, she walks up holding the knife that she killed him with and slits her throat. I actually think that's a better ending. But when you see the sequels, you'll prefer that she doesn't die because reasons. But the original ending, which I had not seen until we watched it together, I thought I had seen the original ending, is way more involved. After he's dead, she comes up the stairs. She does have a knife, and she's covered in blood. And then she sits there and she stiffs him, doesn't she? Still, or is that not in that part? I can't remember.
We don't see his dead body in the
you're right.
original ending.
You're totally right.
Just all
which I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a ton, that we don't get that. But no, so she comes up with the knife near the camera, and then she just sits and rocks back and forth, and they do the gag. But this time she rocks back and forth into the daytime.
Yeah.
It's
she
like
gets
5,
a call
6 hours.
from her friend.
I think it's her sister.
Yeah, like, where are you? We
Mhm.
haven't heard from you.
And then the sister shows up, and I believe the sister shows up, and you hear her like freak out. But I'm pretty sure that the main character, she doesn't leave the room though, so something else gets her. We don't know what. And then even longer, the police show up.
Yeah.
And the big gag there is that she finally stands up and she starts yelling Micah, because she thinks maybe Micah's there and it's the cops. She's holding the knife. They shoot her.
Yeah.
And that's the ending.
Yeah.
The original ending.
And we watched all the endings, and it does draw out. But
it's a bit more
that
drawn
being
out.
said, as far as explaining why you found the found footage the way you did,
Yes.
I think that explains it the best.
I would agree. Well, I mean, her killing herself would also explain it pretty
It would.
well.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's not a terrible ending by any stretch. It's a very interesting, involved, realistic ending in many ways. And I like that. I mean, I like that she leaves the room and screams. I think that makes a ton of sense, because at that point, I think it's clear that we're dealing with possession.
Mm-hmm.
So
sorry,
Rachael and her scary affirmation sounds. But I think we're dealing with that. So she leaves the room and starts screaming because this spirit knows, or this entity or whatever knows, that it will draw Micah to her, so that
so it can
kill him,
draw him out.
Yeah. So I think that all works.
Yeah,
it all works really well. I like the official ending. I think all the endings are fine.
Yeah,
but and endings are hard. So I like that one.
No, I agree. I think it's good. And of all the endings, I do see why they went with the crowd pleasing ending. I think it does end it on kind of the perfect note to pull together that story. For me personally, the ending where she just sits there and rocks back and forth, and I think that just explains found footage the best.
I would agree.
That's my 2 cents, but what do I know?
That's fair. That's also fair. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll wrap things up, talk about our final thoughts on Paranormal Activity and what we're going to be talking about next time, right after this. Rachael, what is your final verdict in the so far of your found footage oeuvre when it comes to Paranormal Activity?
I'm going to say strictly for found footage films, I'm going to rate it as being a stronger found footage than Cloverfield.
Okay.
Obviously, I still have a soft spot in my heart for Cloverfield, but I am going to say, as far as monster movies go, I still like Cloverfield very much.
I feel like a lot of since we did Cloverfield, a lot of this has been me saying nothing mean about Cloverfield and then you defending Cloverfield fervently. Fair enough. But
I'm just so used to people hating on it so much.
Well, fair enough, I guess. But I mean, what I wasn't saying just to Cloverfield. I mean, like to found footage in general. Is it because Cloverfield's your favorite found footage movie?
Partially because Cloverfield was my first introduction to found footage.
Sure.
So, for better or worse, it is kind of the yardstick upon which all other found footage is measured. But also because Cloverfield, we watched it recently, so it's kind of the one that I can give the best comparison contrast to. As far as like of all of the found footage films that I've seen, I'm going to, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say that Paranormal Activity is like a good 8.
Really, that high?
Yeah, it's pretty high up there on the list.
Wow.
I feel like it ticks all of the boxes, or the vast majority of the boxes that there could be for found footage.
Okay. I would not rank it that high, actually.
Oh, really?
I mean,
really?
I like the movie, but I don't think it's one of the best. I think that it did a really good job and it got out there, and I don't think it's bad by any stretch, but I think there's so many like really great intense, scary found footage movies that are like a non-stop terror ride. And this one is still good, but it's not that.
Well, that's fair. No, it is not that.
So,
I wouldn't.
That's with no hate. I really like Paranormal Activity. I'm constantly defending it, actually, to people.
I would characterize Paranormal Activity is most characterized by dread.
Yeah.
And not abject terror. So I can see there's a difference there.
Oh, I mean, I don't think there's any harm in you liking it that much or anything like that, or ranking it that high. It's just, I would rank other ones higher, but I still think it deserves its stance as a poobah, maybe not a granddaddy of them all, but
it's up there,
uncle of them all, or what have you. So, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. We'll definitely watch some of the sequels. We were talking about it. If the sequels click really hard, we might do individual shows for the sequels. But if we're kind of not feeling it quite that way, then we may do like a show about like all of the sequels in one. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll figure it out.
But next up, I'm really excited to show you this one because this is one of, and I haven't seen it in 10 years, but this is one of my personal like favorite found footage movies that like really freaked me out. And we talked about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So we're going to dive into Wreck.
From, I believe, 2007. Spanish, made in Spain found footage horror movie, which many people listening may be familiar with Rec because it was then Rec. It's REC, by the way. This always messed me up when people say Rec. It's short for record, Rec. For years, people would talk about it, and I didn't realize because I'd only ever read it on the thing. They'd say Rec, and I would think they were talking about like a car wreck or something.
WRECK.
So, but it's Rec, REC. It's a Spanish found footage movie, very scary. And a lot of fans and spookies listening may know the American remake, which was called Quarantine, which was not bad, but Rec, in my opinion, wiped the floor with it. It was way scarier in every way. So that's just my opinion though. But Rec, I find very scary. I think the whole series is really good, but the first one really, it hits well. So I think that's going to be a really fun one because there are 4 total Rec movies.
Okay.
So
we're gonna get into that. Keep our found footage streak alive for now.
I guess so. Yeah, that seems to be the way the wind is blowing. I mean, nobody's been mad about it, including me. So I say we keep rocking them out. So and before we go, did you want to mention Geek Out?
Yeah, so I know that I mentioned it last time, and I would just like to plug it again that on June 11th through 14th, I'm going to be at Geek Out, which is in College Corner outside of Oxford, Ohio. If you go to geekoutfestival.com, you can get your tickets. And I actually did a good job this time, and I actually pulled up like all our events and everything. We're going to have vendors. There's going to be panels. It looks like there's going to be actually a tabletop RPG room going on every single day from noon to midnight. There's a video game room that's going to be going on every single day. And then, of course, we've got the Fire and Flow from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. every day. There's a big fire, the fire spinners. They're going to be out there.
Yeah, Poi.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah. There's some list of all the fun stuff that we're going to be doing. And again, that's June 11th through 14th. And if you go to geekoutfestival.com, you can get your tickets.
Hey, so yeah, make sure to check that out, guys. And be sure to be subscribed, stay subscribed, what have you, to us here at Weekly Spooky, because we have so much more to bring you. And we're trying to be a little more consistent with some cutting deep episodes. It's been fun to watch these movies and talk about them with you guys. So if you want to email us, just remember, you can send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love your thoughts about the movies we've talked about. We'd love to hear what movies you think we should talk about, all that stuff. So send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. And if you love what we're doing here at Weekly Spooky, whether it's, cutting deep into horror, our flagship show, Weekly Spooky, Terrifying and True, etc., and you want to support us in a very direct way, head to weeklyspooky.com/join, where for as little as $1 a month, you help us keep the show going and get 2 bonus shows every month and over 5 years of exclusive content, including audiobooks, creepypasta readings, and so much more at weeklyspooky.com/join. So thank you guys so much. for joining us tonight, and we'll be back very soon talking about a Spanish flavor of found footage. And until then, make sure those camera batteries are charged.